now it's time for our predictions, of which we're not ready at all. But go for it, Scott. You start, and I'll think of one while you're talking.
Okay, so I'm just randomly picking three, and I can't help but play a geopolitical commentator on television. So I've said this before. I think that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Israel are going to normalize relations, and I'd like to think that peace and prosperity are going to have a second chance or newfound vigor as the two largest economies normalize relations. I think that President Biden sending these carrier strike forces has ring-fenced the conflict. I think the whole world is coming to the important recognition that you can have empathy for one side, and that doesn't immediately prohibit you from having empathy for the other. And I'm just hopeful that the normalization of the relations between the kingdom and Israel will create a lot of economic incentives to maintain something resembling peace. And I'd also say that it's not possible with the current leadership on either side, but anyways, longer conversation. Normalization of relations in 2024 between the kingdom and Israel. I believe that the world's largest tax cut in history is about to take place in 2024 as the U.S. and China and Chinese relations thaw. I think there's going to be a new bear hug. I think that inflation in the United States is an existential threat across not only the United States, but governments are overthrown. If Roe v. Wade is overturned, people are upset about it, but only a very small number of households are actually impacted. Inflation hits people every day, and it's literally the number one cause of why governments are overthrown or political parties are thrown out of office. So the U.S. and the West have an inflation problem. China has hit real roadblocks economically. Whether you look at their stock market, some of their biggest real estate companies going out of business, and with a one-party system, if you have economic calamity, you tempt or you risk revolution. And I think that while 2 years ago they were definitely feeling very emboldened, I think China now recognizes that they cannot take their economic growth for granted. They have had real economic issues the last 2 years, and the fastest way out of inflation and to renew economic growth across the largest and second largest economies in the world are for the two to kiss and make up. And the IP and innovation of the U.S. combined with the industrial and manufacturing might of China creates every single product in the world for a lower price and a higher quality. And that chocolate and peanut butter of 88% of your toys under the Christmas tree, which come from China, being a little less expensive every year, is going to, the incentives are lining up for both parties to put their differences aside and re-embrace each other. So a normalization or a thawing of U.S.-Sino relations in 2024.
All right.
And I think my final one is,
okay, keep going.
my final one is I think that we're going to see, actually two more, a massive amount of disinformation from AI in Q1 and Q2. I've said this before around the election. And I think travel stocks are ranging from Expedia to, I don't know, what's another, Airbnb. By the way, I'm a holder in Airbnb, not an Expedia, are going to boom. I think the travel industry is going to boom. And unfortunately, there's a very dark side to this. And I think the reason they're going to boom is I think people in their 20s, a lot of them have just given up on the traditional dream of owning a home. And because they're no longer saving $2, $3, $5 a year in hopes of moving into a home in the late 20s or early 30s, they're going to have more disposable income, and they're going to decide to spend it on travel, as the traditional American dream of buying a home has just becomes kind of out of reach for them. And I think the travel industry is going to be the unfortunate beneficiary of all this additional disposable income that traditionally has gone into saving for people's first home. 14 million homes have been formed in the last 10 years, and only 11 million homes have been built. Average cost of a home pre-pandemic was $290. It's now $420, and then you couple that with interest rates going from 3% to 7%. The American dream is now a hallucination for most people when it comes to home ownership, and I think that people are going to spend more money on travel stocks to boom.
Wow, that's a lot. Wow, that's a lot of them. All right, I have two, I think. One, I think, big one. I don't think Donald Trump is going to be the president of the United States. I think Joe Biden's going to win, and I'm going to say that now. I know these polls are going this way. I think the American people have had it with him, and the more you see of Uncle Crazy, the less you're going to like what you see and remind you of bad times. I don't think you're going to remember the tax cuts. I don't think you remember anything else. And I think the people will start to feel better about the economy over the next year. So I think I think the age thing is a significant issue, obviously, but he's been doing so well, and I think people are just going to bite the bullet and vote for Joe Biden. And also, there's some real signs the Republican National Committee is way down in fundraising, both small donor and big donor. People don't want to give money that it's going to help Donald Trump, I think, and people are very nervous about it. So I'm going to go out on a limb. He's not going to be the president. I think we should calm the fuck down. I don't think he will. I think it'd be a disaster, obviously. But I don't think the American people, every time there's that Kansas thing happening or what happened in Michigan with the judge, or they always go the other way that everyone is predicting. And these right-wingers are like, we've got it now, Glenn Youngkin. And I said the same thing about Glenn Youngkin. I was talking to a lot of people. I think people want to move on. And there should be, the only caveat is these third-party things. And we'll see. There could be issues around that. But I just have this feeling people are like, let's just stick with the Captain
you have a good
older.
gut. You have a good gut on predictions around politics. So let me ask you a couple follow-ups. Do you think Trump goes to jail?
Yes. Every lawyer I talk to, there's no
pre
way
or
he's getting
post election.
Well, as long as he gets convicted before the election, if not, he can pardon himself, or there'll be a whole mess of things. But that'll be his whole administration, is him pardoning himself and not getting anything done. So it'll be about him. He'll be just outrageous, and it'll be a useless waste of our time. And I don't think people want to waste their time anymore. So
what about these third-party candidates? Do you think Joe Manchin's going to run? Do you think RFK Jr.?
I think he doesn't have the set. Speaking of small lots, no. I don't think he has the set. I think he's an egomaniac and a narcissist, but I don't think he has what it takes. I think he likes to be in the middle of things, but not the hard work of being a president and doing the things it takes. I even think Trump has got more of a stamina than Joe Manchin. I think both of them do. I don't think he has stamina. I don't know, but I think RFK will fade as people get to know more about him. I think young people being I know a lot of people posted about going home, and all these young people saying, I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden because of the Israel thing. That's a year from now. I think when they're faced with Donald Trump, they're not going to they're not going to stay home, and they're not going to, they know what that means. I think people will man up and do the right thing. So, anyway, that's on that. And in tech, I think the Justice Department might win this case with Google. I don't know.
It's looking that way, isn't it?
Yeah, I think they will. I think they've got a good case. I think it's a backward-looking case, and they should be focusing on forward-looking things, but that's not the Justice Department's job here. So I do think they're going to win it. I don't know what the real repercussions will be, because it's a story of the past, and search certainly has changed. That shouldn't be Google's defense here from what they did then, right? It can't say, well, murder's legal now or whatever. They don't have an excuse. What happened, and I think they'll probably have an issue. I think they will lose this case, and then it'll just keep going on and on. But I do think the government might prevail here. I don't know about these Facebook cases, but definitely they've got a higher bar to prove on things. But it certainly looks like maybe a good year for at least the Justice Department, not so much for regulatory bodies necessarily.
Just a prediction on top of a prediction. If they are in fact found guilty, and the remedy may be the breakup, and it's not entirely clear, even if they are found guilty, if that would be the remedy. But if the remedy looks like it's going to be a breakup, Google stock will outperform every other big tech
that's probably
stock
true.
in 2024.
You are 100% right, sir.
YouTube is a juggernaut on its own. I mean, obviously, search is just the ultimate toll booth, and if they were to spin their AI and cloud division together, the sum of the parts, Google on a multiple of revenue basis is cheaper than every other big tech stock.
You're
right
100% right. You're 100% right about that. I think that'll be interesting. You're right. It could be. I would spin off YouTube if I were there. They've got plenty there to work with. So we'll see. Those are my predictions.
I like
Pretty
it.
basic.
Good.
All
Hope you're right. Hope you're right on all of that.
I shall be. I'm good on the political stuff.
are.
I seem to be good on the. I just think people will be, once they see that guy again, they've seen little bits of him. They'll be like, oh, that guy. Oh, I hate that guy.
I hope you're right. The data says we're both wrong every time.
Nope. The data doesn't. The polling does. The polling was wrong about everything. And I'm sorry. I just
fair
don't
enough.
believe polls. I think there's a silent majority of people who just want to move on from him first.
Well,
Maybe
you
they
know
want
what-
to.
you know what
they
I
might
did
want to
last
move on
night?
from Biden, but they really want to move on from him.
Last night, as I said, I'm alone. I was alone, had an edible,
alone.
and I took a poll and stuck it up my ass.
All right, and we're gonna do that.
I'll be
is
here
the
all week trying
show.
to veal.
Let me tell you one other prediction. Scott will continue to make tasteless jokes no matter what I do, and I'm thinking of calling in the Justice Department.